Hello everybody, this is Fernando for the latest Cryptids and Monsters video, and I'll be continuing again these videos throughout the week, taking your suggestions up to 5 from the previous video where I asked everybody to please just place your suggestions into one area there. So with regards to this video, it's a continuation on the theme where we have giant versions of essentially creepy crawlers. So a couple of weeks back I had done the death crawler as one of my videos, which was the giant version of a centipede. Very freaky stuff. Some of you even mentioned on the comments, and rightfully so, that these things are basically the stuff of nightmares. And now I have apparently another cryptid that is again a giant version of an insect that we see essentially every day, but in this case, instead of being a giant centipede, it's a giant spider. The official name of this particular cryptid is called the Jabar Fofi. I hope I'm saying that right, but it's called Jabar Fofi, J-B-A and then F-O-F-I, Jabar Fofi. But its more traditional term is called the Congolese giant spider. And basically all you do is just take the notion of a regular household spider, the ones you and I see every day, either at home or in nature, and then multiply that exponentially in terms of size, and you have this particular cryptid out there. Very freaky stuff, and in fact the reason why I picked this particular cryptid is because there are so many tales associated with people encountering this cryptid. And so when you have, let's say, one or two, maybe it's a long shot, but when you have 3, 4, 5, 6 and so forth, then you run into a situation where there's too many people running into this particular cryptid, so it's got to be something out there. And unlike, again, the other cryptids that I've talked about in the past and the other monsters out there, this particular cryptid, again, is the most plausible to exist, because there's always the idea that whatever is out there in nature, there's a bigger version of it out there. So anything involving like fish, for example, you run across a bigger fish, and then the next couple of months there'll be another bigger fish found, and then another one, and it continues from there. So very interesting stuff. So the Jabar Fofi, where would you find this spider? Apparently it's said to exist in the Congo, and it seems to be the theme that this is the only area that is home of this particular cryptid. And the Congolese giant spider is a species of arachnid that measures, it's broad, but the main theme seems to be that it measures generally about 4 to 6 feet in length from tip to tip. So you spread out those legs on that spider, and we're talking a spider that is bigger than most people that are out there. Very scary stuff. Again, the idea that something like this is lurking out there in the woods or in the Congo, in the forests, and they're ready, just looking at any prey that happens to walk underneath the trees, and then it pounces, ready to just inject its venom, paralyze the victim, if not outright kill them, and then cocoon them for future eating purposes, either for itself or for its younglings out there. So again, I was talking about all the tales associated with this particular cryptid, and I'll talk about them here. Various stories associated with encounters with this giant spider. I'll give several examples of them here. There was apparently a cryptozoological book that was done by George Eberhardt, and he stated an experience about an English couple who were going through a jungle region near the Congo, and this is what they stated to him, essentially what he wrote in the book. He said, R.K. Floyd and his wife were motoring in the Belgium Congo in 1938. So 1938, again, not too far off, it's just within the past century, rather than some of the other cryptids that I've done in the past that existed in the 1400 and so forth. So they were motoring in the Belgium Congo 1938 when they saw a large object crossing a trail in front of them, and at first they thought it was a cat or a monkey, but they soon realized it was a spider with legs nearly 3 feet. Interesting, that last set of words there, legs nearly 3 feet. So it wasn't 3 feet in total length, no, each leg was 3 feet in length. So 2 legs and the body. We're talking about a creature here that is at least 6 feet in length that they saw on there. Another tale that happened on there, you go to Papua New Guinea in 1942, and there was an Australian soldier who said he encountered a small puppy-sized spider, and the spider was creating a 10 to 15 foot sized web on there. So apparently he encountered one of these Jabar Fofis that wasn't even at full maturity yet, but it was something that he recognized, obviously, that was much larger than your average spider. It looked like it hadn't fully matured, and yet there it was creating 15-foot sized webs in and around the Congo area. By the way, the Jabar Fofi, the spider here, its characteristics are that it's generally a pale yellow-white colorish. So it's not exactly like a dark brown. Instead, it seems to have a lighter tone associated with it. And the hatchlings, the ones that come from the nests that these things create when they're born with a very bright yellow coloring on them, and they have a purple abdomen, so their stomach is colored purple on there. But apparently, as these things grow up, they become darker and brown. And this all comes from the natives that live in and around the regions of the Congo, who have apparently great experience with this particular cryptid. There's so much so that they realize whenever there's one of these particular giant spiders around, because of the nests that they create. Apparently, the Jabar Fofi, it has several nests that it does. One is it either creates a hole in the ground, like an underground cave of some sort, that it burrows under, but it creates its own like an opening, like a hatch of some sort, and it uses this as well to create a surprise attack. So that notion does exist in the real world, where spiders in the forest are known to develop these openings, these hatches where they conceal themselves, and then when prey comes across, they just simply snap it open, snap out their legs, and then capture the creature and then take it back into the dwelling that they live in. The other dwellings that they have is literally they live inside a cave itself. Like they take up residence inside an opening within whatever. It could be a big collection of rocks that they create their own little cave in, or it could be a collection of forests, some trees, some deadwood trees, anything essentially that would constitute a cave itself. They live under. And then finally, another type of dwelling for these particular cryptids is they live above the trees, and they create these giant nests that are right above the trees. Again, perfect area for them to just jump down and pounce right on whatever they're trying to capture on there. So now back to again some other tales associated with this particular cryptid. We go to Louisiana here in the United States, 1948. Apparently there was a gentleman by the name of William Sladen who was with his grandchildren, and they were just going up Highway 171. They weren't driving, unlike that other couple. Rather, they were walking up north because they were heading to church at the time, when apparently William saw something in the foreground, and he told his grandchildren to stop. And the reason for this is because they both saw and then they heard some rustling with some of the bushes ahead in their area. And no sooner did they see and hear this than a giant spider came out and emerged and just crossed the road on there. It was big enough so that it again fell into the 3 to 6 foot length type spider on there. And the spider didn't attack him, and nor did the gentleman and his grandchildren decide to do anything. They just simply watched each other, and then the spider just simply crossed the road, went to the other side where the other bushes were, and then disappeared right there. So pretty freaky stuff on here. We go to then 2011. There's a cinematographer there named Richard Terry who traveled apparently to the Amazon because he was on the hunt. He wanted to make sure that he could find these giant spiders, and so that was there that he visited a village of some sort, and that's where he was told that yes, these giant spiders, these Jabar Fofis, they are around. They live in holes right there in the jungle, and then they again measure about 4 feet in diameter. He didn't apparently see anything associated with these spiders, but he definitely met a lot of the villagers there who had plenty of tales on there. And then with regards to probably one of the best tales is there's another cryptozoologist by the name of William J. Gibbons, and he's been on the hunt for this particular I guess you could call it again a cryptid on there. It's I don't know if I should call it, I guess, a cryptid or a monster, but because again a cryptid is more it's in a base where it's from far from the realms of like a living animal that we know of, but again, if it's a monster, I just consider it like a more giant-sized version of it. But in any case, this is what Gibbons had to say. He visited one of these villages and also was told by some of the natives about their experiences. And this is his direct quote that he shared after he came back. He said, "On this third expedition to Equatorial Africa, I took the opportunity to inquire if the Pygmies knew of such a giant spider, and indeed they did. They spoke of the Jabar Fofi, which to them is a giant or great spider. They describe the spider that is generally brown in color with a purple abdomen. They grow to quite an enormous size with a leg span of at least 5 feet, and they weave together a layer made of leaves similar in shape to a traditional pygmy hut, and then they spin a circular web that is said to be very strong between 2 trees with a strand stretched across a game trail. These giant ground-dwelling spiders prey on the diminutive forest antelope, birds, and other small game, and are said to be extremely dangerous, not to mention highly venomous. The spiders are said to lay white, peanut-sized eggs in a cluster, and the pygmies give them a wide berth when encountered, but have killed them in the past. They were very common, well, once very common, but are now a rare sight." So a lot of interesting things that Gibbons states on there. Again, the idea that these spiders, the web that they have is very, very strong, makes sense because basically them being giant sized, they have these webs that they have to capture larger game. And if we're talking about stuff like antelope and birds and maybe other small animal to maybe some larger animals, they have to make sure these things get caught, otherwise it's just a waste of time on there. And also interesting that their eggs, obviously you and I know spider eggs are really, really tiny. I mean, we're talking almost pebble sized, but these particular eggs from these giant spiders, they're peanut sized, so they're much, much larger on there. And the also very interesting, the idea that these spiders were apparently once very common. They were out there in the Congo and were frequented much more often, but now apparently they are a rare sight. So it goes to show that either these particular cryptids or monsters are on an extinction type level, or they simply move someplace else on there altogether. So, also with regards to these giant spiders, when one thinks about it, we've actually seen several incarnations of the giant spider before in movies. One just has to go straight to the Lord of the Rings, to see the movies there, and to see where it was Frodo and I forget what the other one's name was, but they encountered a giant spider on there. And it was quite a frightening scene. And then one also has to go to The Mist, the recent release that came out a couple years back based on Stephen King's short novella. And there's a particular scene in there where the patrons discovered a set of giant spiders in one of the grocery stores. Really one of the most horrifying things out there when it comes to those scenes, because the idea that these giant spiders laid their eggs directly in the person themselves, rather than like laying them nearby. That stuff could happen with the Jabar Fofi if someone runs into this particular cryptid. But again, apparently it just captures any small game and small animals. So, does anyone else have any experiences, tales, or have they heard of anything associated with this particular cryptid? If so, please share your thoughts, share your comments below. Very, very freaky stuff. Again, this is the stuff of nightmares. If one encounters something like this, all one has to do is just run as fast as you can, or grab a giant stick, do whatever you can on there. But one can just imagine the horror story involved if one of these things captures someone and then makes it a next meal for either itself or its younglings. So, alright, thanks again everybody. Take care. Bye.